Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Kernfeld, and I'm a member of the technical staff here at Cockroach Labs. Welcome to episode number 4 of Learning Golang from Zero. In episodes 1 through 3, I started out with a hello world and worked through some integers, arrays, and slices. And now I'm here on episode number 4, where I'm going to be learning about structs, methods, and interfaces. These are some techniques that I guess they remind me of object-oriented programming. I think there's a lot of arguments about what object-oriented programming actually is, but essentially we're going to be defining our own data types and adding some basic behavior to those types. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm using this book called Learn Go with Tests. And what I like about the book is that it teaches me Golang, but it also has little exercises that use unit tests to verify whether I have understood Golang successfully. So in the previous chapters, we've added an exercise for each of the different concepts that we've learned. So for this one, we're going to start defining our own data types, and they're already giving us an example here. I see there's perimeter, which has, okay, this is a perimeter function that takes in a rectangle. So that seems like a pretty classic object-oriented programming sort of teaching example, where they'll have you define some sort of rectangle shape. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if they have us define a circle shape as well, so that we can practice some polymorphism. We'll have to see if they want us to do that. So with all test-driven development, the first thing that you do is you write a failing test, and you check that your test fails. So I'm going to make a new file here. Actually, I'll need a new folder. So I'm going to call it, what should we call it? Maybe like geometry. And I'm going to go into geometry and make a new file. I'm curious, are people on the stream already familiar with Go, or are people also, like me, pretty new to it? So oh no, I made a directory. That wasn't right. Yeshwant from YouTube is new to Go. Hopefully you won't be far behind, because we're still on some not very advanced stuff. All from LinkedIn, also brand new to Go. I think that if you're brand new, you'll probably still be able to follow along fine, because the code that we're doing, it's not that crazy. So, all right, the interesting thing here is we're doing a little format string. This reminds me of Python's old style format strings. And I guess C format strings are pretty much the same. So I'm going to run this test, go test, and then I think I can just run go test. Large data bank, good morning. Oh yeah, so it's morning over here on the east coast of the US. But I think for some viewers, it's probably not the morning, would be my guess as well. Anyone tuning in from another continent today? So I think I need to put something like package main up here. I think I need a package at the start of the Go file. Yeah. Okay. So, you know what I also need to do? I need to import testing because it's complaining about testing not being there. So when I do the import, I need to put quotes around it. Ajmal tuning in from Canada. Nice. We got a lot of cockroach people in Canada. A lot of people in Toronto, actually. Okay, we got an undefined perimeter. That makes sense because so that's what we should be seeing. That's because we haven't yet defined the perimeter function. I think my next goal should be to get a stream viewer from Africa, large data bank. Have you ever had viewers tuning in? I don't know if you're still watching, but have you ever had anybody tune in from Africa? I feel like we got to start promoting CockroachDB aggressively. I feel like the African dev community is it's about to like take off, you know? So I'm going to do geometry.go here, and we need to create our new function. This is a stub function. I'm not sure if I should be calling these all package main. That might be a problem, but it doesn't seem to cause an error. So if I run the test now, it should fail because it doesn't actually calculate the perimeter. All right. I probably did not need this help, but 2 times width plus height. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So in some programming languages, it wouldn't let you write a 2 here. In some programming languages, you would have to write something like 2.0 because the literal 2 would be interpreted as an integer. Does this seem, I don't know, is this something you guys are used to, just writing 2? I know in Rustlang, I think it would yell at you because it would say you're trying to multiply an integer with a float, which it doesn't like, so you'd have to cast it. Large Databank says, I think there's a lot of gophers in Nigeria. Yeah, we need to open a Nigeria office. So for people who are tuning into the stream, I'm curious, what programming languages are people already familiar with? Katsukatsu says, please open Singapore office. Ooh, Singapore office? That sounds pretty fun. I would definitely go there for some meetings. I want to go to those like apartment buildings in Singapore that have the like the gardens on the roof. Source C10, welcome. So, all right, we're making our function pass. Now let's create an area function. All right, I bet I can do this without help from the book. Just need to. So they're using this interesting trick in Golang here where you can emit the type of a variable and it will just take the type of the next argument. So that means that width will actually be float 64 here. Rohitash Panda says C and C++, trying to learn Golang now. I'm curious, what so C has structs, right? But it doesn't have object-oriented programming. Like, can you add a method to a struct in C? I feel like you can't. So for area, that's definitely going to be width times height. C10 says no, you can't add a method to a struct in C. What about C++? I feel like C++ has all kinds of crazy object-oriented features. So let's now test this area function. Oh, I opened the wrong file. It's interesting that Go puts the test in a different file? Do people like having the test in a different file? I like it a lot when the test is in the same file. I think I kind of got used to it from Rust, but I like it because I can kind of look at the function and then just scroll down a little bit and see easily like the test that defines how the function is supposed to behave. Probably a matter of preference, though. Okay, I'm not going to look at it. So I'm gonna start by just like copying pasting the perimeter test and then modifying a couple of things. I kind of want there to be an assert equals method. It seems like I don't really want to have to write this whole, like you're kind of re-implementing assert equals every time. I feel like I complain about this every time, but I don't know. I'm going to keep complaining about it, I guess. Large data bank says tests in the same file make me feel funny, but I'm Stockholmed by Go too. Yeah, I think it's definitely a lot about what you're just used to. SoraC10 says, I like unit tests in the same file and integration tests in their own file. Well, I know SoraC10 is a big Rust person, so. Oh, interesting. Large Databank says, github.com/ how do you pronounce this? Stretcher / testif? Oh, testify. Testify is a common import for Go folks who are used to test asserts. Yeah, I've seen us using that in Cockroach Cloud. They include some like test suite stuff as well, which potentially that's, I think that's used for more advanced stuff. But yeah, I remember there's like this thing in Java that was like Hamcrest or something where you could, like for example, one of the things that was really useful was like testing that two arrays contain the same elements, but in any order. And otherwise, like re-implementing that logic is kind of annoying. Yeah, classic times with Hamcrest. Pretty good testing library though. I do like expressive testing frameworks. Okay, so let's run our test, and hopefully the area test will pass. Ooh. Uh-oh. I think I did something bad. So the perimeter, in my test area, I called perimeter. That's the problem. I think it should pass now. So I'm guessing we're now going to like factor out an object. Okay, they made a different sized rectangle. That's probably okay. Refactor. So maybe let's do a pre-refactor commit. So I'll commit rectangles, I guess, is the commit message. I'm using commit-a and commit-m. I feel like it didn't like that because I forgot to add the files. So git commit-a, if you create new files, git commit-a will not add the new files that you create. It's only going to add files, or it's only going to add changes from existing files. So in that case, the reason that my git commit didn't work is it said this message, nothing added to commit, but untracked files present. I would say that's actually a pretty helpful error message. Sometimes Git error messages can be crazy. Does anybody here use a version control system besides Git? I feel like everybody's pretty much on Git now. SoraC10 says Git errors have gotten better. Yeah. That's nice. So our code doesn't contain anything about rectangles. Okay, so here's the money, right? This is we're creating a new struct called rectangle, and the syntax here is kind of interesting actually. We're saying type, and then we're giving the name of the type, and then we're saying struct. Yeah, there's this new VCS. VCS is version control system, by the way. So like Git, called Pjoule. Supposedly it's more like mathematically elegant than Git, but it seems kind of niche still. I feel like for me the issue is like, is there something that can solve merge conflicts? That's what I want. Maybe Pjoule does do that. I think you could potentially solve merge conflicts by having more knowledge of kind of the structure of the code, but it sounds pretty hard. So I'm going to call this rectangle. Yeah, okay. And so 2 times rectangle. Can I just put a dot here? Like, I don't know. I feel like in every object-oriented language, you just put a dot and then it's going to work. Not sure if that's how Golang works, but it could be. One thing I like about Golang is, except for a couple things, it really does follow conventions. Oh yeah, so now we have to change how we're declaring the rectangle as well. So this syntax is rectangle and then open curly braces. So they have like a rectangle variable. We don't really need that. We can just type it inline here, I think. And so same here, I kind of have to wrap everything in a rectangle. One thing I noticed is you don't have to specify which one is width and which one is height. I feel like actually that could be kind of confusing, because what if you forget? I mean, these I suppose are actually squares. Let's do some like 10 by 5 rectangles. So I'll need to change the values. So I guess the perimeter would be 30 and then the area would be 50 for this. That's interesting. So we've actually written 10.0, but did we need to do that? Could we just write 10 here? It seems like Golang will say, like, if I type in an integer, it'll just convert it to a float. I'm not sure if it actually is going to do that. I think I'll probably need to fix some other parts of the test first. So I don't know. Is this working? Let's try. I'm going to run go test here. That rectangle has no field or method lowercase width, but does have width. Okay. So what I did wrong is I need to be using uppercase width because the name of the field is uppercase. And in Golang, I know that this is something that I have not seen in another programming language. Is there any programming language that has uppercase for public and lowercase for private? I think a lot of times people use an underscore or something for private. Katsu says, are you learning Golang? Is it not a requirement when you join CockroachDB? Just curious, not trying to offend. No, I'm not offended at all. I think it's a very good question. And I do think that it's like, I definitely see why some people are like a little suspicious. Who's like, wait, how does this guy like even work for Cockroach? Like, it seems like, does he even know programming? The answer is you don't need to know Golang going in. I think you should know some programming. It definitely doesn't hurt to know Golang. You should probably know some types of similar programming languages. But Yeah, Golang isn't a hard requirement for Cockroach. There's time to learn on the job. Source 10 says, does Go also enforce publicity, or does it only do it by the method name? Yeah, so I believe the compiler actually does check it. It's not just like a convention. I think that's what you were asking. So yeah, in terms of me, my background, I did a lot of Rust stuff. And then I'm also pretty familiar with Java and Python. And so I think that makes it a little easier to learn Golang because, I mean, there's certainly differences, but anything that I say, well, I'm definitely going to offend some people, but I don't know. I feel like Golang is just like a newer and simpler Java. Is that too rude to say in public? Ajmal says, I also prefer conventions with a capitalized C on the word conventions. What do you mean by that, Ajmal? Oh, yeah. So, okay. I think the tests are passing now. So, one thing that I wanted to try out is can I just write, if I need a float, can I just write an int and it'll just like work? And it appears that anytime I need a float, I can just write an int and it'll be fine. So let's test that theory out. Oh, this is so interesting. So in all of the other places in my file, I can definitely see, I can definitely see. So this, I replaced this 10 and this 5 with like an integer literal. That is like, I'm not including the decimal point. But for this want number, it actually will not let me do that because it's saying that want is that want needs to be a float 64. So Alex Court checking in. Thanks. Oh, LinkedIn user. We got LinkedIn user says Node.js want to try Golang. Yeah, I actually think Node and Go is a pretty good Node and Go is a pretty good team of languages to know. They both have really great ecosystems. All right, great. We got our first Rust versus C++ discussion in the comments. So I think that, to recap, the discussion is that does Rust or C++ have a scarier syntax? I honestly think that it's I don't know. C++ is really, really complex, but Rust is also really complex. I remember when I was first looking at the Rust syntax, I was like, what are all these like ampersands and apostrophes doing? Like no programming language has apostrophes, but Rust has apostrophes everywhere. I found it really confusing. And there's also generics everywhere in Rust. So I don't know. I would guess that it's simpler than C++, but yeah, it took me like a long time to get warmed up on Rust syntax. It's a very like maximal programming language, whereas Go is super minimal. And I think they're both interesting for those reasons. Oh, so I said at the start of the stream, I bet they're going to make us do a circle. They're making us do a circle. So I feel very vindicated in my prediction. Uh, Getting the Rust compiler to accept your code is very difficult. It's a very picky compiler. It's Yeah, it's like that high school teacher, tough love. How hard could be learning curve from Node? Asks a LinkedIn user. I think that you should, if you're thinking about learning Golang, I would say just go for it, because the language is really easy to pick up. I think that if you already know Node, I don't think it's going to be that bad. The language is, as far as I know, designed to be pretty easy to learn. And I think Golang is very different than learning something like C++ or Rust. Like, I think you really have to invest years to be able to do something in C++ or Rust. LinkedIn user says, I'm gonna say, I'm a little ignorant. I would say that looks like Turkish. Anyone, any Turkish interpreters in the comments section here? I apologize. My Turkish is a bit rusty. So yeah, we're gonna first commit our first struct. And the thing I have here, this is a Git hook, something I very much enjoy, that will automatically run all the tests and keep me from committing. So we want, okay, now we want like a little circle test. All right, cool. Let's make a circle test. So yeah, I'll copy this. Oh, I thought it was called test geometry. I feel like in Python, what's the rule for like test files in Python? Does it have to have the word test at the start, or does it have to have the word test in the end, or does it have to have the word test anywhere in it? I forget. LinkedIn user, never mind. I was typing someone else. Oh, we got a wrong message. We got a wrong number on LinkedIn. That happens. Okay. So let's try running this test. It should fail because we just added the test for the circle, but there's no such thing as a circle. Oh, this is nasty. So I would say a lot of people say when you're doing floating point math, you kind of should not test for the exact value that you're trying to get as a result, because floating point math is not perfect. There's a lot of weird things that can cause exceptions where numbers might not equal exactly what you had in mind. An example of this is like, what's an example? Like, you can lose accuracy in various different ways. So normally they would say, instead of trying to compare to exactly this number, you would compare that your result is really close. In fact, we actually could do that. Yeah, let's upgrade that code after we implement the circle function. I think that's just a good practice to follow if you're gonna be doing like machine learning or something like that. You really want to be thoughtful about how you're doing this floating point math. It sounds like it's just like an academic issue, but if you're with a lot of types of algorithms, if you're not careful with your floating points, you can actually either get a sort of the algorithm can crash, or you can get a result that's completely meaningless. Yeah, Source-C10 suggests 0.1 plus 0.2 is not equal to 0.3. That's a great example, which is ridiculous. But, floating point numbers can only do, it's amazing that they work as well as they do. I'm curious, is anybody in the comments big into machine learning type of stuff? I think there's not that much machine learning in the Go community. All right, so now we need to create a circle type. But the thing that we're doing here is we have this area function, and we're passing in both a value of type rectangle and a value of type circle. So I think we need some kind of like is this called polymorphism? Does anyone remember what polymorphism actually means? But anyways, we need some way to pass two different objects into the same function. Dan Pop NYC says go time. That's right. Time to learn Go. Source C10, that's overloading. Oh yeah. So overloading the function to take multiple types of data. That sounds right to me. I never remember all the like object-oriented words. So, okay, we'll define the circle type. And we're using float 64s here. I don't know. It's usually, I mean, I feel like you usually might as well use 64-bit floats. Maybe an exception is if you have just an absolutely massive number and a massive amount of data, you might want to use a smaller float. Source C10 asks, have you ever looked into Zig? No, I know it's like a cool language that has, I think it has like, it's like even more extreme than Rust in terms of the compile time guarantees. But I actually don't know what is like, what's the basics of like, what is Zig and why are people excited about it? So Golang says some programming languages allow you to do something like this. We're defining the function area twice, and it just has different arguments. Now I'm trying to think what programming languages let you do that. Does Java let you do that? I feel like Java does let you do this. Oh, Zig is not more like a more extreme safe Rust. Okay, so Golang won't let us redeclare the function. Oh, you can have functions with the same name in different packages. That does not seem like the right answer. We can define methods on our newly defined types instead. Okay, cool. So that's what I'm excited about. Source C10 says Zig does more computation at compile time and it's safer than C, but you can still break things if you want. Shep, have you tried meditation? Asks if I'm switching to Vim. So for Rust stuff, I've been using IntelliJ because my Rust projects are like kind of complex. There's a bunch of libraries. For this like learning Golang stuff, there's actually 0 libraries that I'm using. This is all vanilla Golang. So I kind of don't even need an IDE. That said, for work, I do use Goland, which is the Go IDE that JetBrains makes. So it's basically, it's pretty much just IntelliJ for Go. I am a big fan of the JetBrains products, but I wonder if VS Code is going to come and usurp them. Oh, Source C10 weekly reminder to put syntax on in my ZSRC. Yeah, what do? I do syntax on. I'm like not a cool Vim streamer. I don't know I don't know the cool Vim lingo. So yeah, I have a to-do on like setting up my environment a little better, but thank you for the reminder. I think once I start to get into more complex Go projects, I'm going to want to switch to an IDE, and it's going to be too much for Vim. So now, okay, we're using like a method call syntax. I feel like almost every programming language that I can think of has something like this. Oh, actually, we don't need to change the perimeter function. No, that's not right. I do rectangle dot area. Yeah, I feel like I might want to get like Vim Awesome or something. There's like a collection of like cool Vim plugins. Oh, see, now my problem is my syntax is only on for that one file. Does it go off every time I exit Vim? So if I exit and then reopen it? Yeah, okay. So I'm not going to turn the syntax on because I keep closing files. And I think there's a way, there's like you can tab between files in Vim, but I don't know all those Vim like shortcuts. Shep, have you tried meditation says, since I don't know how to use macros, I don't know how to use Vim. And since I don't know how to use Vim, I use VS Code. Yeah, maybe I should just go with like, honestly, does anyone here, is it like a marker of my age that I want to like go with Sublime text editor? Is that only like a early 2000s code editing software? I think it is. Okay, so these functions are undefined. Yeah. So we've gotten up to this point in the code. That's fine. I would like to reiterate how great the compiler is here. If you take the time to slowly read the error message you get, it will help you in the long run. Yeah, this is a great error message. It says type rectangle has no field or method area. I love it. So let's add some methods to our types. Ooh, okay. So what have we got here? We've got a func, and it takes in, before the name of the function, we put the type that the function acts on. I'm guessing you can only have a single type here. Does anybody know if in Golang you can have multiple types before the name of the function? That seems like a too strange type of like convention to have. Oh, I don't need to do perimeter. I keep forgetting. I only need to do area. So I put the rectangle here. Shep, have you tried meditation? Says Sublime is gorgeous and fast AF, but it's kind of a relic. I think all the cool kids, they were using Atom. I don't know. Is Atom even cool anymore? I feel like society may have moved on. So I can have two area funcs, but each different func has a like a different object that it works on. There's an official name for the object that the method belongs to, but I don't remember what it's called. Shep, have you tried meditation? Says the cool editors are Sublime to Atom to VS Code. Yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of great stuff about VS Code. So circle dot area. Well, so we need to do radius times radius. And then I guess you know, one thing I'm not really proud of is I do kind of know a lot of digits of pi. I thought that it was pretty cool to know a lot of digits of pi when I was in 5th grade. I'm gonna say in retrospect, it's only kind of cool. If you really want to be cool, you got to know the digits of phi. That's how to be popular in middle school. Sora C10 says, I hope Go has a constant for pi. I don't know. I don't think Go's going to have a constant for pi. Math.pi. Oh, wow. I was wrong. So I'm going to need, in order to get that, I'm going to need to type in import math. Thanks, large data bank. You know, I didn't think that Golang had it in it. I thought that all Go programmers would just have to memorize pi. You don't want to bloat the standard library with all those extra constants, right? Oh, interesting. It's a lowercase I. Does Go use all caps for anything? Like even a constant in Golang would not be all caps. Oh, interesting. So they did pi times c dot radius times c dot radius. I did radius times pi. I don't know if that's going to return the exact same result. It might not. So let's run the test to see if this passes. It did pass. So it appears that the order of the multiplication did not mess anything up. But I think, in general, it can. So I'm going to make a commit. I always like to make a commit when my tests pass. Shep, have you tried meditation? Says, it's nice to be explicit, though. What if someone's reading your code and doesn't know what pi is? Not to mention the performance gains. Yeah, huge performance gains. Sora C10. I guess we have the Rust crew in here doing some light roasting. But I don't know. It's nice that Go has a pi constant. I think a lot of are there any programming languages that don't have a pi constant? I think that there must be. I can't really. Does JavaScript have a pi constant? Oh, Sora C10 says no magic numbers. Right. Like if I just write pi out, somebody might be like, what is this? What is this thing? So what is the commit? Oh, circle area is the new functionality. And then the git hook runs a test. One thing that I love about Golang is the compiler and tests are so fast. They're so fast, especially coming from Rust. Like it's a massive difference. I know this project, this like project is really small. Oh, JavaScript does have a pi constant. But yeah, the Go compiler, so fast. Oh yeah, so I said I was gonna do some best practices. So I'm gonna open geometry test. The issue here, we don't really want to check for exact equality. What we should do is have some kind of like error tolerance. I would call this like, tall or something. And then we'll set it to a pretty small value. I don't know. The value is, small can be a hard thing to define. So, but, I'm just going to say 0.001. Dorsey10 says something seems off about the kerning on your screen chat. So I actually have no control over the chat overlay. That's built into this product Restream. So, and Restream is an amazing product. With like before Restream, I had to install this software OBS onto my computer, and it's open source, but it's really, really hard to use. So I'm gonna make a too small and a too big, and then we don't really need so many digits of accuracy on this. So let's try rerunning the tests. And yeah, I think this is just a good practice for anytime you're trying to check float equality. Source C10 says maybe Go also has an epsilon constant. Yeah, so I think you're talking about machine epsilon, which is like the smallest. It's like this. It's kind of like the resolution of a machine representing a float. The thing is, when you're doing math, you can't necessarily use the machine epsilon because it's difficult to predict how much inaccuracy the particular computation that you're doing is going to introduce. Now, we're just doing a simple multiplication of three numbers, so that's going to be pretty numerically stable in most cases. But, if you're doing any kind of like recursive algorithm, or I guess like an iterative algorithm, there's a lot of it's really difficult to quantify how much inaccuracy can be introduced in that kind of computation. So I'm going to do a commit like float tolerance. I guess, yeah, one lesson to take away is probably just floats are crazy. So we're going to refactor our tests. This is really cool. So what we're going to do actually, instead of doing a rectangle and a circle, we're going to take a shape, which I don't think we've defined what a shape is. But that sounds like that's going to be an interface. So I'm going to just paste this in to the, I'm just going to end up blowing away my beautiful tolerance code. I think that's okay. We're not taking this to production. And let's try running this. So I think this is going to fail because we have not told it what a shape is. Yeah, of course. So undefined shape. Ooh, okay. So this is an interesting thing. So instead of doing type shape struct, we're doing type shape interface. Yeah, that seems good. So I'll need to declare that in my geometry file. That's fun. So now if you were in a language like Rust or Java, you would have to explicitly declare that your function, or that your like I would need to explicitly declare that circle and rectangle are shapes. But I believe in Golang, the interfaces use something called duck typing, which is if something has an area function that returns a float 64 and takes no arguments, then it's automatically a shape. And I think it's this duck typing. The reason it's called duck typing, by the way, is I think there's a saying, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So in this case, if it looks like a shape, that is, if it has an area function, then it is a shape. Some other languages do use this. I want to say JavaScript kind of, I mean, JavaScript doesn't really have interfaces, but I think you end up using duct typing. Actually, does JavaScript have interfaces now? I'm not up to date with the latest JavaScript developments. I know they're adding some pretty cool stuff. Okay, so they're talking about, normally you have to write code to say my type foo implements interface bar. Des Preston says no interfaces in JavaScript, classes, but no interfaces. Sora C10 says TypeScript has interfaces. So in JavaScript, do you basically just do this? You just call an object with a function and hopefully, and as long as it has a function that is like, that is the right types, then it'll just work, right? So I guess the difference here is that Go will actually check that it has the right kind of method at compile time. And I think I've been using the I've been using the terms function and method interchangeably. I think a better way to use it is a function is something like perimeter. It takes a certain number of arguments, whereas a method has an object that it acts upon. So the method sort of belongs to an object. There's a more official way to describe this, but I don't remember what it is. So now our helper does not need to concern itself with whether the shape is a rectangle or a circle or a triangle. Great. And then they're also saying declare only what you need in interfaces. Yeah, that seems like good advice. Des Preston says you can check the class in JavaScript with instance of if you want. Oh, yeah, honestly, JavaScript's class system is, I find it pretty mind-boggling. I have a lot of trouble keeping up with, I think it's like meta classes. No, that's Python. Maybe it's also JavaScript. Like each, oh, it's called prototype. Oh my gosh, I forgot what the name of the JavaScript class system is. Yeah, there's these prototypes and everything has a prototype. Is it like, and there's an official word. Sora C10 says, I worked with a C library once that used doubles as IDs. And okay, that's wild. I don't know why you would use doubles for IDs. That seems a little bit bonkers. Like, what if you have an ID that's nan? Or can you have an ID that's infinity? And am I remembering right that there's positive 0 and negative 0 in the standard float system? I know there's positive infinity and negative infinity. I don't know. Using floats for IDs, pretty crazy stuff. So further refactoring. Ooh, table-driven tests. That's something I've never heard of. Sora C10 says, I think they just used bit patterns and used doubles to make sure C didn't break the size. Oh, yeah. Because in different programming or in different architectures, like a C integer might actually compile down to different sizes, I believe. That's pretty brutal. So they're using this library was using doubles, not because they wanted to store floating point data in it, but because they wanted to make sure that the IDs were always the same size on every platform. Sora C10 says you can store a pointer inside of a nan. What? That's what? I feel like there aren't that many kinds of nan, are there? Anyway, table-driven tests. Table-driven tests. Okay, so, this is great. We're making a beautiful array of shapes. And then for every shape, we're also including what value the area should have. This is awesome. I love this. We actually use a ton of these type of tests in Cockroach Cloud. So definitely seems like it's a super useful technique. One thing that's interesting here, I would say in almost every programming language, you can declare an array of particular type. Or sorry, you can declare an array of a particular interface. Rust doesn't let you do this. It's kind of annoying. Or you can kind of do it. It's complicated in Rust. But it's nice that you can just do this in Go. Okay, so we're going to add a new triangle. Okay, does this even seem fun? I feel like I'm just going to skip the triangle. Do people think it would be interesting to implement a triangle? I feel like that would be kind of boring. Like, we already did a rectangle and a circle. We pretty much know how the triangle is going to work. It could be good practice, but I don't know. All right, so now there's some philosophy stuff here about table-driven tests, making assertions of the truth, not a sequence of operations. I don't know, whatever. That's a little too philosophical and abstract for me. So make sure your test output is helpful. So I don't want to, yeah. Okay, so we want to get some nice error messages from the tests. This definitely seems interesting. Ooh, and there's this %#v format string. That is a pretty cool looking format string. So this will print our struct with the values in its field. Yeah, so that will also help us understand what type we're dealing with. So %#v. Great. And then I'll need to print out the struct. So the struct would be, I guess, tt.shape here. And I guess anything in Golang is automatically has a way to be printed out as a struct. I think almost every programming language has that, again, except for Rust lang. Kind of annoying. Anything you want to do in Rust, you kind of gotta add something on to do it. So I'm curious, like, now that we kind of gotten through structs, methods, and interfaces, what do people think of object-oriented programming basics in Go, especially like compared with the other languages you're using? I have to say, it seems pretty simple and effective. I think there's a ton of, like, if you're in like Java, a lot of the programming languages that I'm familiar with, like Java, Scala, Python, JavaScript, kind of have like object-oriented programming bolted on in a way that's a little bit awkward. And there's these weird gotchas, especially Python. Object-oriented programming in Python is crazy. So I like Golang. It seems really, just simple, straightforward, and well thought through. I feel like it does everything I want. Oh, this is cool. I didn't. So you can actually run. So they're giving us. We're doing names for the test cases, and the way that we're doing that is by adding a little name string here. The struct. One thing that I like a lot here is it lets us define an anonymous struct. We don't actually this struct never has a name, but I guess if it had a name, it would be something like test case. So we just define the type of the struct, and then we can fill out the values. I'm going to do name, and then this one would be rectangle, yeah. And then I'm going to call this one circle. One thing I'm wondering is, do I actually have to... Do I actually have to... So is it okay that I use name here, but then I don't specify that this argument is shape? Hopefully that's fine. And so now I need to do a t.run. And t is our testing, it's our little testing.t. I guess it's like the testing harness or something. And so I'm passing in the name so that we get a nice result from where the test failure is. I'm going to delete my old code here. Oops. And then paste in the new code. Ooh, this really needs to be formatted. Yikes. So that looks about right. The only difference is that they used the name has area instead of want. Oh, Source-E10 says pointers on x86 are effectively only 48 bits. And you can store 48 bits of arbitrary data in a NAN. Oh, that is wild. I did not know that. Is that just because there's no computer that's big enough to actually use all 64 bits of pointer space, I guess? Mixture of field value and value initializers. So what I was asking about, is it okay that I specify that this rectangle is a name, but I don't specify the names of the other fields in the struct? And the answer is no. It looks like you have to do either no field names or all field names. So I think this test should pass now. One thing that I'm going to try is let's intentionally cause a test to fail so that we can see the nice printout that we got by naming each test. So now it says, it prints out the value of the rectangle, and it says then got 84, want 72. That's great. I love that. So that's a really nice tool for making our test output more readable. What we're doing is we're giving every test a name, and then we're calling t.run and specifying the name of the test. So it looks like we're about wrapped up with this chapter. I wonder if it's just getting easier over time, but I feel like I actually made a little more progress through here than I'd imagined. So declaring interfaces, they're calling this parametric polymorphism. So yeah, today we learned structs, interfaces, methods, and then table-based tests. That's great. And let's make a git commit first. Table-based test is the name of the commit. So what have we got coming up? It looks like next week it's going to be pointers and errors. And yeah, pointers definitely seems like a great thing to learn about. And I think error handling could be super, super interesting because every language has a different method of error handling. And I think, I feel like error handling is still a super, super unsolved problem in the field of programming languages. So I really think that looking at how different languages handle errors is a great way to kind of learn about the philosophy of the programming language and to figure out, there's just so many methods to try to handle errors, and I feel like all of them have some horrendous pitfall in any programming language I've seen. Sourcey10 asks how Go makes pointers safe. Well, I guess we'll learn about that. Hopefully, maybe we can try messing around with some weird pointer arithmetic next week and see if we can cause anything weird to happen. I always enjoy some weird pointer arithmetic. And it also looks like we're going to make a great wallet struct and deposit some Bitcoin. I don't know. Maybe we should be doing, well, NFTs, but in any case, blockchain tech is clearly super hot. So definitely looking forward to pointers and errors next week. I think that's going to be starting to get into some pretty interesting and meaningful design decisions that the programming language makes. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and looking forward to seeing you next week. Ooh, Go makes pointer arithmetic safe by banning it. All right, definitely looking forward to learning about pointers. But yeah, thanks everybody who commented and helped me out with Go. Much appreciated, and looking forward to seeing you next week at 9 a.m. Eastern, 14 o'clock UTC.